Hi friends, this is Brent Hears, the Productivity Coach. Today I'd like to talk to you about what it would take to become a multidisciplinary master. This is something I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. It's born out of this curiosity and interest that I've always had with historical figures and contemporary figures who have just been able to master multiple areas of success. So people who, say have like a certain level of business success and artistic success, or performers, say like Donald Glover, who's like this actor and comedian, and the musician Childish Gambino, and people have they're able to take their native genius and then apply it across a variety of domains, and how they're able to just create their own sort of universe of content. To me, when I look at that kind of thing, I always see these people as incredibly artistically fulfilled and just really fully expressed as people. These are the kind of people who they really go the distance in their lifetime, and they really just create this rich body of work for people to draw upon. I've always been really drawn to that kind of thing, and I've always wanted to have that kind of lifestyle for myself. Although I found it really difficult, because when it comes to actually creating a practice and a day-by-day ritual of being able to master different domains, it can be very, very challenging. It can be very daunting. And so over the last little while, I've been collecting at different frames and perspectives and techniques on how to do that, on how to cultivate mastery in different disciplines. And so that's what I want to share with you here. Another example as well are our inventors from back in the day, like our Edisons and our Isaac Newtons and these kinds of people, Da Vinci, people who were able to just dive into multiple perspectives. And so I've spoken with a lot of people, perhaps such as yourself over the years, of people who have a lot of interest and have a lot of aptitude in many different areas. So you may have found, for example, that whereas you're good at one particular artistic pursuit, when you start learning about something else, you immediately become fascinated with this expression. It can be something really not on the pop cultural path. For example, like you may one day do a little bit of bocce ball, this Italian lawn bowling sport, and you try it and you notice how interesting it is to try to just roll the ball just perfectly, and how after a few tries you're able to get good in your skill, and you notice the big draw that this culture has to this skill, and you may want to spend a little bit of time developing and mastering it just because it's fascinating and it just kind of pulls at your interest. But then, if you're this kind of person, then you're fascinated by a whole bunch of things, and it becomes really difficult to choose what you're going to do. And then there's this overwhelm of choice, this opportunity shock, as Eben Pagan calls it, and then it makes it difficult to actually go ahead with anything. So what I want to do is I want to talk with you about the choosing process, the discerning process, the process of committing, how to commit to something, how to stick with it. I have about 6 points if I want to go through all of them. And I'm just going to go through them all quickly. So this is, any one of these points we could dive really deep in, but I want this to just sort of be an overview so that you can just kind of pick and choose and take them with you into your own life, and hopefully develop a practice yourself of becoming your own unique kind of Renaissance person, a creative kind of person, doing these different pursuits. So that is what is in store for us today. So here we go. I've put these things just in a similar format to my previous video. I have them from kind of the inner game to the outer game. So from like the inner sort of subjective to the practical. One of my greatest deficiencies is speaking, kind of on a concrete practical level, because all of my personal stock is in the subjective element of things. Like in my own personal philosophy, if we have our subjectivity set up properly, like if, for example, we have good self-esteem, self-love, there's room to make mistakes, there's room to make errors. When we trust ourselves and trust our lives and trust ourselves to live our life properly, then generally a good life unfolds from that. That's just my perspective on this kind of thing. But nevertheless, I really want to emphasize the practical. I don't want to be off balance. So whenever I make these videos for you, I'm really doing my best to also offer a practical element to it. So that's just a little behind the scenes for me. So, okay, number one. Becoming a multidisciplinary master. This almost goes without saying, but we really need to say it and really establish this. Get ready for a long road of practice. Get ready for a long road for what will be basically a lifelong pursuit. There are no quick wins. Do not look for any quick wins. If you are advertised certain techniques, like, okay, you can get this result really quickly, maybe that might be so, but generally speaking, as you develop these really important kind of basic, these basic abilities, such as like focus, prolonged focus, determination, tenacity, these kinds of things, these will just be developed over time. Also, very importantly, there is going to be a quality about this pursuit, this lifelong pursuit, where you are going to be developing a velocity over time. So as you develop your practice, as you hit at these different techniques and different pursuits over time, you will get better. And then as you get better, your output will increase and your nuance and your mastery over these domains will increase. But from a subjective experience, you will still feel like you're at the beginning, and you will still feel like an imposter, and you will still feel like you're invalid, like you're not the real deal, and you'll still feel like there's like miles and miles to go. It will just always feel that way. That's why whenever you talk to somebody who's at like the top of their game, they're at the top of their game, like at whatever creative or whatever sort of a discipline that you might be thinking of, you can ask them, like, what does it feel like to be like the best of the best? And they're like, I'm just at the beginning. Like, you'll hear them constantly saying, like, I don't know anything about anything. And so that's just what it's like to be on this road. And so what you'll need to do over time is accept that it'll always feel this way. You'll always feel like you don't know what you're doing, but you may notice how there are 100 common pitfalls in whatever this pursuit is that the new people are falling into that you don't fall into anymore. And so you'll want to be willing to find evidence that you're actually improving, because you won't find it inside of yourself. You'll only find it in the form of data if you're willing to accept it. So number 2 is on the subject of commitment, which is really tricky, especially for those of us if we have ADD, ADHD. I've worked with tons and tons of you over the years. I think I may have a little bit of it myself to some degree or other. And with it, so one of the qualities about having ADD and ADHD is this fascination with multiple topics, multiple explorations, multiple paths of interest. And with it, there can be this really kind of intense sense of anxiety or fear or worry when it comes to actually committing to one thing over a period of time. And so what we want to do, this is item number 2 for being a multidisciplinary master, is to learn to recognize how this works, how the distraction mechanism works in us. And it works like this. When you're about to do something, so say you've set an hour aside to work on painting, oil painting, and you set up the easel and the oil paints, and you're going to get going. As soon as you start doing that, as soon as you commit, at that point of commitment, all the other stuff that you could be doing or thinking about will start to become more attractive. And it will not only become more attractive, but more convincing. And it will say to you, oh, no, this is a waste of time. This is the wrong thing to be doing. You should be doing this other thing instead. And if it can successfully convince you, then it will grab your attention and pull you over here. It may say something like, just look at this quick meme on Reddit, or just look at this quick YouTube video. You have time to do this, and then you can come right back to the painting. It will say whatever it has to say to pull you away from this thing. And so a principle that we want to really internalize here is that distraction always comes in the form of an invitation. It always comes in the form of a persuasion. It will always present an opportunity, and it will say whatever it has to say, and it will give you bait that you either accept or don't accept. Now, is this totally true? There may be some fringe cases where the distraction in us is just so incredibly strong that it might just be a neurochemical thing, and it really isn't possible to solve this problem on this level that we're discussing here. And so if that's you, then you should recognize that in yourself and get the help you need. But there's a general like within the greater bell curve, there's an element about distraction that is only a persuasion. And when we can recognize that we just keep falling for it every single time, then we can become stronger and sharper at recognizing that and saying, no, 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 I'm going to commit to this thing for this period of time. It's only through the ability to commit to something, some one thing for some period of time, that we can develop real skill in this area. So this particular wherewithal is very important to cultivate. You can start with shorter periods of time if that's necessary. For the next 10 minutes, I'm going to do this. For the next 20 minutes, I'm going to do this. But it's absolutely crucial to have periods of time that are bracketed for this one thing, and you're able to focus on this one thing. This is what Cal Newport calls deep work. So understanding the distraction mechanism, understanding that it will say whatever it needs to say to get you to not do it. For whatever reason, this part of us feels threatened by deep work. So keeping that in mind and being ready for it. So number 3, okay. Let yourself be inspired by others, but don't seek to replicate them. So what I'm referencing here is that it's really easy when we have a discussion like this to look at our heroes, the people that we really look up to, for example, the people that I listed in my life and just, anybody else, that we start comparing ourselves to them and typically, falling short of that comparison, and then that can feel really bad. And so we know that we shouldn't be doing this. This is common knowledge. But what's particularly false about this approach is that when we put people above us, then we're constructing a hierarchy. We're constructing sort of some sort of a pyramid that we need to ascend, and we need to reach where they are and get beyond it. When in fact, whereas it's true, like there is a certain hierarchy when it comes to skill, your job isn't to replicate somebody else's path. Your job isn't to be a version of somebody else. Your job is to become yourself. I made this video a couple years ago. That's really honestly one of my best videos, especially from that era. And I recorded it in my cottage. And it's called Focus on Self-Expression. It's something like that. Focus on self-expression as opposed to something else. And, and in that video, I was discussing this concept of your priority as a multidisciplinary master should be to become yourself, to focus on authentically expressing what's in you to express. And that applies both to like the song that you're going to write if you're making a song, or the book you're going to write, but also turning your life into your own work of art, your own unique expression of yourself. So this is something to keep in mind. And so it will not come from replicating other people. Instead, it's much better to focus on being inspired by them and journaling out, like really getting clear on what about these people inspire you. Because when you can get clear on that, you actually may realize that you don't want to become these people at all, that you're just really impressed by their skill and also their ability to express themselves, authenticity, like how well they've believed in themselves and trusted in themselves and really went the distance and really made huge bets on themselves. So all of these qualities, it has nothing to do with these particular people. It's the qualities that you're inspired by and that you want to internalize for yourself. So this is just a very valuable way of approaching this. It's to release this hierarchy mentality, stop placing yourself below people, and just focus on becoming more of yourself. This will be much more fulfilling, and it will mean that you won't have to feel so bad about yourself. So number 4, so this is like kind of the mindset, but now we're kind of moving into the practical end of things. As you practice these different disciplines, notice and allow these different disciplines to talk to each other, because this is the huge benefit. So say, for example, over here you're practicing Taekwondo, and on the other hand, you're practicing, say, poetry, and you're writing, you're becoming a poet. And maybe at the same time over here, you're an entrepreneur. And so you have these 3 things going on. So pay attention in order to, to really become a multidisciplinary master. how these three things communicate with each other. Notice how when you are in Taekwondo, how there's like a way that you move or a way that you go about a sparring match actually feels like there's a theme from your business building over here that actually applies over here. And notice how like both of these can feel like poetry, because when you do that, you can allow themes to emerge from inside of your discipline. And this is the greater learning that you do from the inside. So as these themes emerge, what's happening is you're growing as a person, you're expanding in consciousness just as you understand more. And this will just feed into all of the things that you're doing. It allows you to cognize all of these different pursuits as one thing, which is ultimately, ironically, even though we're talking about being a multidisciplinary master, where it's like, oh, this over here and that over here, really the best perspective is to imagine all of these things as one thing, your unique thing that you're developing, turning your life into a work of art. Good, okay. So getting into the practical elements of this. So you want to ideally be pursuing two things at once. So if you have your work, whatever it is, say you're self-employed or you're working with a company, so you have that, and you have your life, your health, and your relationships, probably max out at two different pursuits. So it can be, and also probably have pursuits in two different domains. So, you know, this is flexible, right? But I would generally suggest that it's not like music and oil painting, but instead music and some sort of physical thing. So like a sport that you're playing, whether it's, you know, running or jiu-jitsu or a team sport of some kind, have one thing that you're developing on the physical end of things and one thing that you're developing on the artistic aspect of things. This is how you can properly spread out. It's generally good to have one thing that you're doing that brings you into your body, that allows you to feel embodied and physical. This will just, it'll help you not get so stuck up in your head and like overly cerebral about things. So one thing that brings you into your body, one thing that's an artistic expression, and then that will be a really nice balance. So, so you can do it that way. Either way, be deliberate about what you're doing, and above all else, resist the temptation to overload yourself, because it's like, oh, I'm going to do this, but I'll throw this on there as well, and you know, but I can, while I'm watching TV, I can be doing this thing, and like, because we're playing the long game and we want to master the ability to commit to one thing for one period of time. It's a discipline in and of itself to limit what you take on all at once, so that you can really give yourself to that one thing or those two things. So the next one is to slow down. So you will notice as you are developing one of these skills, say you're learning a language, that you'll notice that you're pushing ahead of yourself, that you're trying to speed up, that say you have like a list of 100 words in this new language that you're trying to learn, you will, it's like, oh, like how do I get these 100 words into my head as quickly as possible so that I can get on to the next thing. So sort of a hidden important quality of being a multidisciplinary master is having the willingness to slow down and meet the task that you're working on where it is, to take it at the appropriate speed so that you're really properly engaging with it and learning it. What I like to imagine as a metaphor is a carousel, where if the carousel's whipping around really fast, it's not possible to jump on and grab it because you might hurt yourself. And so what you want to do is allow the carousel to slow down so that you can get on, and then slowly the carousel can speed back up as you acclimatize to faster and faster speeds. This harkens to what we were talking about in item number 1. Just checking the time here. Good. So if you are, so say you're learning 100 words, but you're feeling this sense of impatience, drop the impatience and affirm to yourself, I'm willing to let this take as long as it needs to take, even if it feels slow. Because you might think, Jesus, I'm so far behind, there's so much to learn, and now I'm taking on multiple disciplines, so how do I do this? But it's like, no, it's like when you slow down and allow yourself to take as long as you need to take to learn these 100 words, then you get good at learning words. So as you slow down and meet yourself at your current level of ability, you get good at speeding up. So that can only happen when you're really willing to slow down. That's sort of the paradox of slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So if you feel rushed about this on any level, slow the hell down, because this is not a race. There's no end point. This is going to be a lifelong journey, and it will always feel like you're going slow. It'll always feel that way subjectively, because you, like, whatever speed the carousel's going at, you just acclimatize to that speed. So then finally, number 5, and this is sort of a culmination of everything we've been discussing here, is to allow this practice to be an expression of your authenticity. So when I say it in this sense, what I'm referring to is, make your practice on a day by day, an hour by hour basis, day by day, week by week, make it into something that is not coming from this place of heavy obligation, like, oh, I have to slog through this, and I have to, discipline myself or whatever. There is a time and a place for discipline, and this, we can get into this in a future video, because there definitely is a time for that. But this process must be enjoyable. And I'm not really big on the must word, but it's applicable in this case. It must be enjoyable. If you're not having a good time developing yourself as a multidisciplinary master, then you're on a sinking ship. You're running on willpower, and the thing is not gonna float. We talked a lot about this in the previous video on productivity as an emerging quality. It's like, if you're running on willpower, then the thing's not gonna work. You need something more sustainable than that. So I suggest follow your authenticity, follow your energy. So when is it time to create this thing? So if you're writing a book, does it feel better to write in the morning, or at noontime, or in the evening when it's dark? If you are developing an exercise routine, or you're cultivating your ability to go for long distance runs or bikes, when should you be running? Should it be really early or really late? Find a way to turn your daily practice into something that's really harmonious and rich and enjoyable, so that you're looking forward to every aspect of your life. If you have that, so that there's no friction in your life, then you're really set on this course to move into great self-expression, because you're just getting better and better all the time. So pick and choose from other people's different routines. Listen to the Tim Ferriss podcast. Listen how he deconstructs all the high-class performers, and take what you want from all of it. But don't feel obligated to any of it. If there's something that you're doing that's not working, consider dropping it, because maybe it's not appropriate for you. So that is it. So that's the big list. If you use these, it will really help you become a multidisciplinary master. In all of these, these are principles that you can go deep with them and really internalize them. These are really kind of, these principles are pregnant with a lot of potential in them for deep understanding. So one more time from the top. Get set up for this to be a long road. Even if you're going fast, it won't feel like you're going fast subjectively. Don't be afraid to commit to something for a long period of time. Notice the distraction mechanism in you and how it attempts to get you to not to uncommit to whatever you committed to. Become wise and savvy to the excuses that you make to abandon your commitment. Number 3, let yourself be inspired by others, but don't seek to replicate them. We're looking for authentic self-expression. Number 4 is allow these things to overlap and enjoy the overlapping and the themes that emerge. Number 5 is just do 2 things at once simultaneously, ideally over different domains, one physical, one cerebral. Number 5 is to slow down, have a willingness to slow down. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And then 6 is to allow your routine and your day and your expression to be rather your routine in your day to be an expression of your authenticity. Do things that work for you. Make it into your own thing, your own sanctuary that makes sense for you. And this should work beautifully for you. If you're interested in working one-on-one as a coach, you can get your first session for $5 Canadian, so this is $3.50 USD. Just send me an email, hello@brentheuris.com. Join my email list if you want to get my free course on sustainable high-level productivity. And it was great talking with you. Oh, and also please hit like on the video. So grateful would I be. Love you. Have a wonderful day.